we always knew that we wanted Black love to be more than marriage, which is what the show is about. But doing the show even drove that point home, because it was like, if you don't know that you're worthy, you're not going to have a happy, healthy relationship, because you're waiting for that other person to validate you.
That's right.
So the most important form of Black love that we can talk about is self-love.
Self-love, yeah.
And so that's why the work is like nonstop.
Hey guys, welcome back to our Real Love Scenario. Shout out to all our real lovers out there. We are back in our happy place.
Always. This is like our super, super happy place.
But it's a special day.
It is a special day.
Because we got another guest episode.
And I'm so thrilled to introduce our guest today.
Yes.
Because one, I'm just a fan. And I think that's what I love about our guest episodes, is that these are people that we truly like admire. We love the work that they do or the lives that they lead.
For sure.
And so I have the pleasure to introduce a brilliant entrepreneur who is a filmmaker, a producer, a director, but she's also a mom and a wife. And how you might know her most is as the founder of Black Love, the brand, okay? Because it's not just a thing, it's a brand.
Yes, it is.
Today. Please welcome to our couch, Codie Elaine Oliver.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And thank you for acknowledging the brand. Like, most people even are aware of it, or like the docu-series, which, you know, we did that, but
It's so much bigger
my
than that.
day-to-day is Black love.
Every day.
Every day.
You're
love
living
that.
it and you're working it.
Yeah.
All the things.
It's kind of like it's great inspiration for me, because with starting Relationship Restored, which is the network that this podcast is on, and thinking of like how I could help people just learn more about love and get a different perspective.
Yep.
I kind of see you guys as like I said, inspiration to see like, oh, this is possible, even doing movies and like all types of things.
Yeah.
Now it's like this is the vision that I had for this. And now to see like, oh, this thing is possible. And now there's kind of like a blueprint for somebody to do this. That's awesome. And now we get to sit here and talk to you.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
you.
It is it's such a thrill, really. And getting prepared for this, you know, Dre and I obviously talk and we do a lot of research. And it's not just important for us to have people on our show who have great brands, but your real love story really matters to us. So we're going to get into that in a bit, but we are going to start with something fun first.
Yes.
We're going to play our game, Real Love or Real Lame, and we got to get Codie Elaine's answers to see how she feels about it.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to give you a situation and you got to tell me if it's real love or real lame.
Okay. Caveat, I'm not very judgmental when it comes to relationships. Like, I will try to find the like, well, if this happened. So, you know, I'm going to do my best here.
Okay. So the first one's very easy. After your first date with a man, he tells you that you are going to be his wife. Is that real love or is that real lame?
It's definitely leaning toward real love.
Okay.
It's certainly not lame to state your intentions. It's not, ever. And, you know, my real love story, we got engaged after 6 months. We moved in together after 3, maybe 2. So, you know what I'm saying? Anything can happen.
Okay. I think I heard a story with your husband talking about that. Like when you guys first met, it was in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
And I think y'all spent a lot of time together. I think he said he told, was it your cousin?
He told, not my cousin until Thanksgiving. This was
Okay.
September. So he told, I think he said 5 of his friends.
That like, yeah. This is going to be
You were the
somebody.
one.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'm such a sap. I'm like, I'll cry right now. I will. I promise I will.
I just feel like I might put somebody away if I say that too early. Like,
Well,
I
he
could
said
think
it to them. He didn't say it to me.
you. Okay.
But when did he say it to me? Really, he didn't. We just kept it moving. Like
It was just like when you know,
we
you know.
met September 9th, 2013. We moved in together by December 1st. I said I love you on Christmas Eve or like the day before. And then he said it back. And then we got engaged March 2014.
I love it.
That's their relationship is so similar to mine's in a lot of different ways. That's why I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yes.
Okay, good. We like that answer. You kind of play the fence a
Yes,
little bit, but
maybe
you
It's not
lean one
lame.
way.
It's not
It's
lame.
not
But if you
lame.
don't like him, it's lame. You know what I'm saying? If you
Right.
don't like him, it's a sign that y'all are thinking different things.
Okay. So next one.
Yeah.
Your man leaves out the house and grabs dessert from one of your favorite dessert spots, but he doesn't get you anything because he said he's helping you with your diet.
That's lame. That's not cool.
That's not cool.
Not at all.
Eating it in front of you.
No.
Whack.
Eat it in the car. It never happens. If you are really trying to help,
That
it didn't happen. You handle your business by yourself.
that's nuts that
Yeah.
you would bring the
No,
dessert home
not
like,
cool.
well, you said you were on a diet.
No.
I've done that. And what Kevin Hart say? You gonna learn today? I learned that day.
That you better not ever, never do that
Oh
again.
my God.
'Cause we
You
like-
literally said that?
Well, no, I didn't say those exact words. We have a place that we like to go called Paris Baguette. It's like
So
a
good.
bakery, and it's like really good. So I was like, oh, I'm about to get something. I'm thinking I'm being thoughtful. I ain't gonna do that. She liked the chocolate cake or the tiramisu cheesecake or the coffee cake.
He
I'm
knew
like,
her order. He was
I'm
just like, not those.
nah, because she said she on a diet. She trying to be strict, but I shouldn't starve myself. Now, this is what the Bible say. When I was a child, I thought as a child. I operated as a child. So I was still early in the
You better
relationship.
use scripture to try to
And
reason
I was
Right.
like, okay,
Make it make sense.
I'm helping
Right.
her out, like and I learned.
What you're not doing is helping.
Yeah,
But,
I learned in that moment. Don't do that. Nah, don't bring all this and then you eating it in front of me. Yeah, no, I can't do that.
You could have spun it like, hey, I brought this home. We could share it since you're trying to be mindful of gaining weight and stuff. Like we can share it. You
Yeah.
want a bite?
I don't like sharing food, but
Yeah, I don't
learned.
either. I don't either. Trust.
But I learned in that moment. Okay,
Never
if either
again.
don't get it,
Yeah,
eat it in a car, or you got to bring something for them.
you have to
Yeah.
give her the option.
Yeah, or you could have brought what she normally gets, and then she could have denied it. Like, thanks for thinking of me, babe, but you can have it. I'm good.
Okay.
That could have been an option too.
Yeah.
but you learned. It's
I
all
learned.
right.
I learned
That's
very
all-
quickly
That's
that
all
day
that matters.
of how I need to operate in that moment.
Learning
You
is
are no
key,
longer
you know?
lame.
All right, you ready for the last one?
Yes.
Okay, so you first start dating somebody, and once y'all make it official, the person goes to your Instagram and asks you to delete certain pictures because they make them feel uncomfortable. Is that real love or real lame?
Okay, this is where I spent many years interviewing lots of couples around.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So there's reasons for things. To me, the reason for it is what's important, right? Makes you feel uncomfortable. Does that mean like it's triggering to see exes? Like, does that, is it, this is your past life? Let's leave that in the past. Like, let's not even show the world that. Like, I think that person needs to be able to articulate why it bothers them, and the other person should listen. Yeah. I mean, that's my feelings. I don't
It's
think
like not real love or real lame. It's worth a conversation.
It's worth
sure.
a conversation 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree too. I think it could be. I think some people could see that as like, oh, you're being controlling, or like you said, it's my past. Why do you care about it? But if it is triggering, if it is something that's like, it really makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think ultimately you want to try to make your partner feel comfortable.
I think most people would delete it, right?
Yeah.
Most people, it's like there's no reason for the world to see who you dated last year or the year
Right.
before that. So most people would delete it, but I think it can come off as controlling. So it's just about a conversation. It's also about tone and approach.
We talk about that all the time is communication. It's the whole goal of it is to be effective.
Yeah.
And if you want to be effective, you got to learn your partner and learn how you need to approach them in
Yeah.
order to let them know how you feel. Because
Yeah.
if they don't receive it, then it wasn't effective. Even if it was honest and transparent and open.
Yeah.
If they don't get it, it wasn't effective communication.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for playing our game.
Of course.
We're going to jump into a question that we ask really all of our guests because we want to get an understanding of kind of where you first got the concept of love, what you can remember as a child of like your first view of like, this is cool and I like this, or this is supposed to be love, but it doesn't look like it. Can you remember how old you were and who was that for you?
Okay. So when you first started asking, I was thinking about like my family and like what love looked like in my family.
Yeah.
But in terms of like relationships,
More like your family.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so my parents got divorced when I was 11.
Okay.
And when they separated, like I had no clue anything was wrong. So I'm a little, I've always, I am in therapy. Like I'm trying to figure out what did I see or understand about all of that now? And frankly, I feel like I grew up in a house full of love, like period. I now know what all the issues were, but I really never wanted for love or attention or like care from my immediate family or my greater family as well. So for me, it is being present. It is as Michelle Obama says, like greeting your family with gladness.
Oh,
She says, should greet children with gladness. And so that's really what it feels like for me and what it looked like for me growing up and what I want every day to look like. It's really not even in the specific, like do this, do that. I mean, I could, talk about my love languages and stuff like that, but it really is overall like warmth and prioritizing the family.
Got you.
Oh, that's
showing up for
so
each other.
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean that it reminds me of my situation. My parents were divorced ever since I could remember, but it was a loving village and loving family that I was around. However, when my mom got remarried to my stepdad, I felt like that gave me like an example of what it looks like to have that dynamic in the house. And I think that now how I operate as a husband is very much structured or imitating what I saw. So in that situation, even though your parents were divorced, when it came to like being a wife, do you feel like you had an example of what that meant or what that looked like in a relationship?
That's why I created a platform. No, I definitely did not feel like I had an example of like what does partnership look like.
Yeah.
And part of that was, and part of Black Love was like exploring those conversations with couples because it doesn't look any one way. Yeah. Right. And so and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
If Tommy was here, he would definitely be like, well, you could do these things. But no, it's a process. It's a journey. I'm definitely still learning. And I have an aunt and uncle who've been married my entire life. And I'm trying to think, I think there's one more, not really. My aunt and uncle are probably like the blueprint for me and for Tommy ultimately, which again, growing up, I didn't think about what does partnership look like. Yeah. Also, they lived in San Francisco and I lived in Texas. When I went to grad school, we lived in the same city. We had all moved to Los Angeles at that point. So even the exploration around like what you see every day versus what you don't. This is like on topic but off, but I'll tell you like a funny moment. Because my parents were divorced and my sister went to college. She went to Hampton when I was after they got divorced. So I kind of was an only child for a while. Yeah. When I was in grad school, again, I lived in the same city as my aunt and uncle. I remember Mother's Day one year where my cousins, their 3 kids, and my uncle were like taking care of everything. And I remember thinking like, I'm about to cry. I've never experienced like Mother's Day where I didn't have to do everything. So just those sorts of moments where you're like, oh, I didn't even realize I missed that or needed that or that there was another way. Yeah. Until I saw this. Yeah. So, you just kind of pick up things where you do. And that's probably when I was also looking at them as, and their partnership and what that requires.
Yeah. I love the emphasis on partnership because I think we can very easily just use the word relationship, right? Like, but relationship can represent a lot of dynamics that aren't necessarily a partnership. Thinking about you and your partner, your husband, Tommy. I know you said if he was here, he would have some things to say.
Yes, he would.
I know you told the story before, but for our viewers, we would obviously love to know how it all kind of came together. It sounds like it came together fast, which if I'm being honest, I kind of like that. Like, let's just get through it. Let's get through the checklist and let's get this show on the road. But how did it all happen?
Yeah. So we met at the Toronto Film Festival in 2013, and if he were here, he would be like, and then you hit on me, and then I would be like, that's not what happened. So I'll just give you all that piece. So we met. I was doing PR at the time for Canon, the camera company, and they had a line of cinema cameras. So we were at film festivals meeting directors, cinematographers. Tommy was debuting the first film that he wrote, directed, and produced, and he shot a little bit of it as well, and edited a little bit of it too. And we met in the Canon Lounge, or we saw each other in the Canon Lounge, and I missed where he was sort of looking at the cameras and talking to my colleagues. I was somewhere else, but I saw him and I said to them, was he interested in the equipment? They were like, yeah. I was like, does he live in LA? They were like, yeah. I was like, all right. So I got my card and I walked over to him where he was standing.
So did you already have this, like, he's cute?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I walked in.
For sure.
It wasn't like pre that day, but it was like I walked in and I'm like, who is this? Right? Like this 2013, I've been in the industry 7 years at this point, and I'm like, I've never seen this man. And he's got a whole movie at the Toronto Film Festival. Who is this man? And so yes, I got my card and I walked over to him and I was just like, hi, I'm Codie and I work with the Canon team. And if you want to talk about the equipment, here's my card. And he was like, all right, thank you.
Wow.
What?
You did not bite at all.
Not at all.
Did you do something like you did some intentional, like, like
child, the
smile,
hair flip, everything.
Yeah.
So we did chat briefly about his movie, and then at the end of it, and like when I walked away, he goes, "Nice dress," and it was a basic ass dress. Okay, so I'm like, okay.
And like that compliment, not to cut you off, but that is like, it's like, I want you to compliment me in the dress, not the dress.
Well,
like,
he
you
was
look
still
nice
he
in
was
that, but
still
he's being
just being
professional.
polite.
He's being polite.
Okay.
So, but I was like, this dress is all right. So, all right, okay. But we saw each other a couple of times that day. It's a festival, busy, like far away.
Yeah.
I forgot to say, I Googled him after that.
Oh.
I Googled him because I really didn't want to date a filmmaker. I Googled him and I learned that he went to Carnegie Mellon and that he studied economics and digital media and minored in business. And I was like, ooh, he different. So it kind of fueled this crush. I think the fact that he paid me no attention also fueled this crush.
Yes.
But by the time we saw each other at the end of the night, it was at a party, and we run into each other, and I said to him, at this point, like I said, I've got this crush all day. I've seen him a couple times, and I'm like, hello, hi. So I said, when do you leave the festival? This was Monday. And he said, we leave on Saturday. And I said, well, we don't leave on Wednesday. We leave on Wednesday night, but we don't work on Wednesday during the day if you wanted to like chat. And he goes, are you hitting on me?
I mean,
he wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's what he says.
But
I like
is
clarity.
Awkward, like, because you're like,
right?
Well,
exactly.
Yes, I am.
What I said was, I don't know. And then someone walks over and they're like, Tommy, I need you over here. I need you to talk. And he goes, don't move. And I was like, okay. Of course, I left right away after that. And later he found me in the party and we talked all night, I think till 3 a.m. that night, and then 5 a.m. the next night. Wow. And then the third day was Wednesday and we had lunch before I left.
Okay.
So that's how we met.
I love that.
That's always special. I love those moments because even as you get deeper into your relationship, those initial times and that like initial spark and flame, you don't get that.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like watching you tell that story, which I know you've told it before, but you're still very like back in that moment. You can see the energy of like, and I was like this and he was like that. And it's like, oh, it's so cute. It's literally Black love, obviously.
Sure.
It also made me think about, because Dre, who is like my right hand man, this is like my friend who gives me the advice from the male lens that I appreciate so much as a single woman navigating the dating space. And Dre is like, and I'm a woman that doesn't mind approaching a guy. Like I would totally have done what you did.
Yeah.
But Dre's sometimes like, you just got to set it up. Sometimes you just got to like make it known that you're in the space. Just like maybe ask a question.
That's
just
what I
open
say.
the door and he will like follow through on it. So I can understand the awkwardness of like, are you hitting on me? It's like, but yes, I am, but I was trying to be subtle about it. Like,
well, here's the thing. I will never admit that I was hitting on him, but you are correct. Like I would let you say that. And he would be like, you were hitting on me. But no, I agree with you completely. It's funny. We met in 2013. I was a big fan back in the day of Millionaire Matchmaker, Patty Stanger.
Yeah.
And she used to say, do the 5-second stare.
Oh.
So that they know that you're interested.
Right?
It's like
it's a little bit of a
It
lingering
reminds
look.
me of that episode of Fresh Prince where he's like, I notice you noticing me and I won't put you on notice that I notice you too.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm just letting you know, like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Want to approach.
Like look good. I'm checking you out. I like to, I like to flirt. I like to try to throw the signal.
Yeah.
But it would make me feel so awkward if someone was like, "Are
Right?
you flirting with me right now?" I'm like, "Oh my God, is he rejecting me? I don't know what's happening."
Right.
It would throw me for a loop. But it worked out.
It did work out.
It did. It did.
And then now you guys are moved into a relationship where you guys started working together. This is so interesting to me because I have done this with my wife. We started dating in May. Then we started our business in November. And then I quit my job that following March and we were full time. Living together.
We have very similar stories.
That's what I was saying. Living together, operating a business full time. And that was so interesting for our relationship. And that time she moved in with me and I had a studio. So we're living in 552 square feet. We are running a business together, both 23, 24 years old, like still not as mature as we probably needed to be and doing this thing all together. And it was just so interesting trying to work through that dynamic. And people always ask me like, how was that experience? And I'm like, it works because we're different, but it's a headache because we're different.
Yeah.
Like we were able to build this business over the past 7 years and run it full time because I was strong where she was weak. She was strong where I was weak. But we also butted heads so much because we were different. So we wanted to approach things differently, handle things differently. So I'm just curious, like, how did that dynamic work for you guys? And how did it impact your relationship? Because we still try to figure out like how to manage the business and working in the same place. Like it's just challenging.
All of that. We are definitely very different in how we approach things. We are different in our skill set. I would say my biggest challenge in life is that Tommy is like extremely good at so many things and very efficient. And so it's often a comparison for me and maybe a little bit for him too. But I would say it's like, it can be really hard because I feel like, I don't know what he would articulate, but I feel like he can do 20 things at the same time. Well, like he isn't alien. Like it is anyone who works with us knows this, but if you can only do 10, then I feel like I'm failing. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like he's necessarily saying that.
Yeah.
He's not saying it at all. But that's the weight of it. And so that's really challenging. And then
I got a question with that because that's something I had to learn in my relationship, that thing when it comes to fairness.
Yeah.
So with our business, I had to understand like just because you're doing 10 and I'm doing 20 doesn't mean that it's unfair. It's like if you're better at those things, it makes more sense for you to do it.
Yeah.
And then if I'm better at these 10 things, then it makes more sense for me to do it.
Yeah.
But I had to, that helped translate into our relationship when it came to like household things and stuff like that too. Did you find the same thing with your relationship? Like the fairness aspect of it?
I would say it's a work in progress. We're probably just now getting to a point this year of like recognizing each other's contributions. And I guess the fairness is a weird word to use, but like, I guess the fairness of it.
The balance, I guess.
Yeah. Because some of it's internal, right? For me,
Yeah,
more so than him. That's like, I have to recognize my contribution is enough, you know? And it's a lot. Like sometimes people will say it to me and I'm like, oh yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We're both doing a lot. We're both doing too much, to be honest. Like we're in this hustle phase. But I will, just going back to what you said though about even like working together, period. We're very different. We approach things differently. We didn't always communicate that well. And so we had to learn, like we butted heads a lot. And through drawing a line in professional like responsibilities, because we didn't do that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Of course.
What's funny is that I read that somewhere at the beginning that like if you work with your spouse and it's really important to like be clear on what your individual responsibilities are. But we never did that.
Yeah.
Partially because our relationship was new too. Our relationship, we met September 2013. By August 2014, we were producing a film, an independent film in Detroit, and starting to shoot Black Love. And those were our working together things. But we also both had a background producing.
Yeah.
And he was also a cinematographer and director, which I wasn't. But we but we had a similar background and similar experiences. So it was a period of also learning. We're doing this. We know how to do the same things. So where are you strong and where am I strong?
Yeah.
So it was more like observing and figuring it out and figuring out
All while still figuring out your relationship.
our relationship. Like take the word leadership,
Yes.
leadership professionally, leadership personally. How are we navigating this? So there was a lot unsaid that we were just doing.
Yeah.
To kind of then look up and be like, this is not gonna keep working this way. So we had to draw a line, but that was years later.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we also got married 2015, then we were pregnant by the end of 2015. First child 2016. So much happened so fast.
Yeah.
That I don't think we started drawing that line until 2018.
Wow.
That's 5 years from when we met.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it got better. It definitely got better after doing that. And then we went into the pandemic.
And I'm sure that was very, very, very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting.
Yeah, we had the same experience. Like we drew that line. I mean, really now, maybe like a year ago.
Yeah.
And we got together, I think 2017, 2018, and our relationship is much better for it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's a learning experience to understand. Like I had came from sales. Rhonda and I worked together a long time ago, and we sold like rental units in Class A luxury buildings.
Yeah.
And I came from sales. So we thought that, all right, when it came to us doing social media services and we have free consultations, I'll be the one that does it because that's my background. But then come to find out, like she was way better at it than me, but we were both good at it. So it was like, you should be doing it. No, you should be doing it. And we just had to figure out, okay, you're way better at this, so you'll take this.
Yeah.
But it was a journey trying to figure that out.
That nuance though is really important because we do talk a lot about like, oh, draw the line. Who's good at this and who's good at that? What happens when you're both good at something? Then you got to figure out who's better at it,
Right?
Or who's more efficient at it. Like we're
Right.
both
Who's more
good,
available to do it. That part too. Part too. I remember Dre saying one time, like, you know what? I just realized Bree and I can't work in the house at the same time.
No.
I got to get an office space. She likes working at home.
Yeah.
I feel more structure outside of the home. And so it was like, you just got to navigate and do what works
If I'm
best.
there, she's going to ask me a question every 5
She gonna
seconds.
get what she needs.
Every 5 seconds.
I'm working. I'm using you to work.
Like, if I'm away, if there's a problem with the computer, she'll try to figure it out on her own before she asks me. But if I'm there, it's like, hey, babe, this thing isn't refreshing or it isn't working. So like every 5 seconds, I'm like, can't get nothing
I
done.
am not
here.
IT.
So Black Love, we received it, to the masses in 2017, but you just said that you started filming it in 2015. How 2014.
We weren't even married.
Wow. So how did that conversation come about? Who was the, I guess, original brainchild of we should do something around Black Love?
Me.
Okay.
So I had the idea back in 2008.
Okay.
So my parents are divorced. When your parents are divorced, people tell you you're more likely to get divorced. I also am a Black woman. People tell you Black women are the least desirable. This was also happening in 2008. It's not happening as much now. But there were articles around like being Black women are the most likely to get swiped left on the dating apps, whatever. The more education a Black woman has, the less likely she is to meet her husband. I had a master's degree at this time, living in Los Angeles, where you're also unlikely to meet a serious partner.
Gia said the same thing.
Yeah.
Gia Peppers.
Yeah. So it's a mess in terms of what we were being told.
Yeah.
And that was, I forgot to say, during the period of a Black marriage crisis. All of these were headlines from ABC to the Oprah Winfrey Show, to everywhere. And one of my friends had a really bad breakup and she was just like, no one's happy and like, what's the point and all of that. And I was like, no, like there are happy couples out there. Yeah. She was like who? And I was like, well, Gina Prince Bythewood and Reggie Bythewood, who are filmmakers. She directed The Woman King most recently, but Love and Basketball would be what most people know her for. Nice. And I said, Mara and Salim Akil. And she was like, who are they? She was in banking. She was like, who are these people? And I like tried to Google them to show her.
Yeah.
And this was 2008. There wasn't anything out there.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of me. I literally said, like, I want to create a place where Black love stories live so that no one can say that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that was also when the Obamas were on the campaign trail. And so we're all going, Black love, this is beautiful, this is amazing. So I felt what it was like when you could see it. And so that was the beginning of it. And at that time, I didn't know what it was going to be. I had been in film school a year. I went to film school in 2007. And I also went to film school to make movies, scripted films. That was my goal.
Yeah.
So a documentary was like in the very back of my mind. But I was like, nah, those are boring. A. And B, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So no. And I was like, maybe it's a coffee table book. And so I set out, honestly, at that time to make a coffee table book. But again, I didn't know any happily married couples. So I knew very few, part. Right? So this was a journey. And I did do some interviews for the coffee table book. Ultimately, my dad got sick. And so I was like doing a lot of traveling back and forth to Texas. So slow. 2013, I meet Tommy, and he's a cinematographer, director, producer. He does so many technical things. And I told him about the idea, and I was like, I kind of maybe think it could be a documentary. And he was like, let's do it. And at that point, I was still like, I don't know if I'm going to work with you. I just met you. Like, what if we don't like each other?
Like, I want my footage.
Right.
This was my idea.
So yeah, but he was like, we should do it. Cause he's also an aggressive producer. Like, he's the person who's like, we can do this. Yeah. So, we set out to do it. And, we set out to make a documentary, 90-minute doc. The goal was like to put in festivals and then ultimately HBO or something like that.
Yeah.
And then 2015, I think, was when docuseries became a thing. I mean, Making a Murderer was the first one, which obviously has nothing to do with Black love, but that was like, wait, people are watching documentaries in parts?
Yeah.
That's weird. And then the OJ doc. And so it was like, that was his idea to pivot to a docuseries, which we did. And at that point we had shot for like almost 2 years. So we had the first season pretty much done. From that point we decided to edit a pilot and then do a materials. What am I trying to say? Like a pilot presentation for the first season. Yeah. And we already had 50 plus interviews. We had Viola was one of the last ones we did in that first round.
Gotcha.
Because we wanted to go to her when we had something to show her.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go to her at the beginning. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I when you were talking about when you first started, you said that you didn't know any couples that were happily married.
Yeah.
And I wonder, now that you've done all these interviews and you've been married for a while, is your definition of what a happy marriage is different from when you started versus now having the perspective that you have?
What's funny is I typically wouldn't even say happily married. I said it because that's how I felt in that moment.
Yeah.
Typically, not to say people aren't happy. Typically, I lean toward the word healthy.
Yeah.
I say like happy, healthy marriages or relationships because first off, happiness is like subjective. You may be very happy, but when I look at it, I'm like, you know what I mean? So that's not my business. Yeah. But like healthy is when people can articulate that they're communicating with their partner in ways where they feel heard and understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where they're recognizing what they bring to the table, good and bad.
Yeah.
And so I try to, the Black Love brand, we try to discuss and explore what a healthy relationship looks like for the purpose of happiness.
Yes.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned, sort of, hopefully this is answering your question, but one of the biggest things I learned early on was like what we bring to our relationships, our traumas, our biases, our previous experiences of what love looked like, good and bad. And so bringing that to the table with another person who has all of that and figuring out what happiness looks like for both of you, that's a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And so people always say relationships are work. And one thing I know for sure, is that the work is the work you're willing to do on yourself.
Ooh, that's so good.
People are always like, what is the work? What is that? But that, to me, that's my answer without no one can tell me otherwise.
Got you. No, I love that answer.
That's solid. That is so solid. There's something else I heard you say, and I want to read this because it really it hit me in a certain way where you said it is critical to us that we reflect to our community that we are capable and worthy of love. And that was a big catalyst for Black Love, the docuseries. One, why was that so important to you to show that representation? Obviously, not just for yourself, but obviously for what was happening in the media and all the stories you talked about. And then thinking of the dozens and dozens of couples that you sat with, was there one in particular that really stood out for you that had a massive impact on you personally?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no, because there's so many.
Yeah.
But to your first question, it was multiple fold, right? It was showing myself and my friend, that one friend in particular, and others, that like the relationships are out there.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to see something reflected to you
So
that
you can believe
want.
that, that it's there. Yeah.
And the other part of it is, while there were all these headlines about how we're not being married, staying married, yada, 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 which, by the way, the Black marriage crisis is actually people who are of a lower income status are more likely to get divorced, and Black people fall into that category.
Yeah.
So while we're being told that, like, while the headline says you're not going to stay married because you Black, what it really was if you don't have a lot of money, that's going to be a problem. But the headlines are damaging by themselves. But the other part was, while all of those headlines existed, the other ones were that we were being hunted by police.
Yeah.
We were being told that our lives don't matter.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm trying to think when the words Black Lives Matter came about. I don't remember the year, but like it was around,
at the same time.
I think it was right before, like I was thinking about Black love right before, and then that happened, and it was like, yes, like everyone, like not just us, like we need to see that our love matters, our families matter,
For
like
sure.
our we matter, but like this is a way to show the world that we are that we matter, that we are happy, loving husbands and wives and mothers and fathers, and not just villains that they think we are.
Yes.
And so that really was the capable and worthy, right? We're seeing that we're not worthy of love.
Yeah.
We're playing villains and bad guys in movies and TV, and not getting to be like fully seen as loving
Whole
individuals.
beings,
Whole beings. Thank you. And so it was all of that. And sometimes it's hard because, for TV, you got to put it into a sound bite.
Yeah.
You do.
But it was all of those things. Like, that's why it just kept bursting inside me. Like, I have to do this. I have to
get
do
it out
this.
there.
And to this day, because it'll get better for a little while, and then it'll not be better anymore. And we need to continue to remind each other what we're capable of. And we need to remind ourselves.
Yes.
And that was the other thing, that like we always knew that we wanted Black love to be more than marriage, which is what the show is about. But doing the show even drove that point home, because it was like, if you don't know that you're worthy, you're not going to have a happy, healthy relationship, because
Sure.
you're
True.
waiting for that other person to validate you.
That's right.
So the most important form of Black love that we can talk about is
It's
self-love.
self-love. Yeah.
And so that's why the work is like nonstop.
That's such a that's the undercurrent. Like, I watched all the seasons for sure. And that was such an undercurrent in so many of the marriages. I love that there was such a wide range of them, from faces that we know, celebrity faces that were on there, like Viola Davis, and so many others, Tina Knowles, which we'll get into in a bit. We do want to talk through that a bit. But that was such an undercurrent, that they talked about how important that when they did hit rough patches, a lot of times it was because there was so much self-work that needed to be done. There was a breakdown in the self-love. I miss the show dearly, but the good news is I can always go back and watch it. The episodes are there.
You watch it for free on the Black Love Plus app.
Get the app. plug
All seasons.
It was so just beautiful to see, even in the couples that were married for like 60 years. So much was so similar to theirs, to the couples that had only been married for like 3, that they were wanting to obviously goal towards that, but they were potentially running into some of the same things, where a couple that got together in the 40s and the 50s, some of the challenges are still the same, or the hurdles or the way you need to work together in partnership are like still the same. So just from a viewer, to the creator, thank you for that, because the representation was necessary. And I think it still is necessary. It's a big part of why we love what we do, because we always say we give advice from obviously our lived experiences, but for the purpose of happy and healthy relationships. It's not our goal to just get clickbait and just say what sounds cool right now. It is to really try to exalt the beauty, the true beauty of love. And that's not always pretty.
Yeah.
But the overall story is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well said.
well, thank you. Thank you.
I have a bit of a selfish question. Going back to the work dynamic, is that my wife and I'm 29, she's 30. And the conversation around kids is, coming up and what that looks like. Her mom is like, now I want grandkids. But I'm thinking like, I'm so busy right now. I can't imagine adding children into this. Like, what would my life look like? So I just want to know, how do you, doing everything that you do as an entrepreneur, you guys being married, like, how do you manage to have children and still go this hard and do everything that you're doing?
Oof, okay, how do I answer this?
It was
how do
all
we
the
manage?
last like, woo.
I mean, the short answer is you figure it out.
Yeah.
You figure it out. That is not to say it is easy. That is not to say that one person in various seasons doesn't carry the bulk of it.
Yeah.
But I will say, it's funny when you started talking, when we both wanted kids. Like when we met, those 2 nights that we talked all night in Toronto, again, I did not want to date a filmmaker. One of the questions I asked him was like, what is your goal? Like, what is your dream, like beyond movies? And he was like, to be the greatest dad ever.
Oh,
I know. And I was like, all right,
just like every time
let's
I'm
go.
like,
So fast forward to when we got married in 2015, did we talk about a timeline then? I can't remember, but I mean, we were like soonish, you know? And then I was like now though.
Oh.
Partially, I had this fear for a long time that like, what if I can't get pregnant, or what if it takes a long time?
How old were you at this
It didn't
time?
take a long time. I was 31, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he was 30. He's younger. He's 6 months younger than me. So I think I was 31 though, max 32. I don't know why I can't remember this, but ultimately I was like, no, I really want to like do it now, because we just don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
And so we got pregnant like a month later. And then we had one, and then we had 2 more. I have twins 2 years later. So like we had 3 kids in 3 years. Wow. So it was a lot, and it was fast, and it changed a lot, or it caused a lot of growth and learning.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but you can do it if it's what you want.
Yeah.
That's the thing about parenting. If you're not sure, or that's a whole different journey. But if you're like, I know that I want them, just know that whenever you do it, it's going to be challenging. But that y'all will figure it out.
yeah.
Got you.
With all that healthy communication.
No, I love that. And did you guys have like a village around you guys in that, like, were you near family or anything? Or no?
Nope.
So it was just y'all
my
two.
aunt and uncle had moved at that point from Los Angeles to North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So we did not have that kind of village, although they certainly came back to help. But we have a lot of great friends. We learned a lot about childcare, quickly. And now we can be that for other people. But no, we did it without a lot of friends with kids.
Oh my goodness. So I assume the babies are like, they know what you do, because not having a big village to help, it's like, well, you got to go. Like you coming on to sets.
Well, they weren't on any of these interviews, which is the challenge, which is part of why we stopped doing the show. It's one of the reasons that we stopped doing the show, is because we did all the interviews, just the 2 of us and the other couple. There's no other crew in the room at all. Because we wanted to create an intimate environment.
Yeah.
And we could always change that approach, but we didn't want to compromise the show. So eventually we were just like, this is a lot to leave them all the time to do this, or to try to plan these big chunks of time where we could be away, in addition to all the other things that we were doing.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons that we stopped. But yes, they do know, and they love Black love, like the words, which is important to me.
For sure.
They got their "This is Black Love" t-shirts. And yeah, they're
They're all into it. So the brand is growing. The brand has branched into so many things: live events, a podcast network, and you continue to make films. You continue to do things that are in line with the brand. Your most recent endeavor is your film, The Perfect Find. Talk to us about what that was like, the process of getting that to Netflix, number one, because I know that's, pitching shows and all and films is such a big deal. But how was it? How was it kind of bringing that to life?
Well, I will say Tommy is really good at making things a no-brainer. Like the same with like Viola and Julius. He's like, we're not going to go to them until it's a no-brainer, where they're not thinking about it. They're like, oh, that looks great, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, but The Perfect Find is a book that I optioned in 2015. I had optioned Tia Williams' earlier novel, The Accidental Diva, when I was in grad school. And so in 2015, when she wrote this new one, it was a manuscript. It wasn't even published. I was like, let's go. Like, let's get this one too. And so from that point on, we knew we wanted Gabrielle Union to be Jenna Jones. We like Tia knew that, the author, me and Tommy we were all on the same page about it. And so it was getting her the book, and getting her to say yes. Because in Hollywood, which can be frustrating to people, like you don't go to 5 actresses, you go to the one you want.
Yeah.
And so, getting her to say yeah, which wasn't a long process as much as she had to read it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, she read it and loved it. We brought on another production company. At that time, our production company was not able to like put a lot of money into it. So we had another production company that helped get the script, and we all brought on a writer that I've known for 20 years, Lee Davenport. And then I'm trying to think, when did we go to Netflix? By the time we went to Netflix, my point is it was a no-brainer.
Gotcha.
We had the good script, we had Gab, we had a great source material, and then did we have Numa? Then we got the director too, Numa Perrier.
Okay.
So then it was easy peasy.
Sparks.
Yeah.
I was watching it recently, and as the film was coming to a close, I was like, wait, is that Codie?
Yeah.
You're like in the film. I'm like, this is sneaky. I love when little things happen like that. Like Robert Townsend obviously has starred in a lot of his own films, but he's also done it in that way where he just like, he's sneaky in the background. If you see it, you see it. If you don't, you don't. Was that always the plan, or did you just
Not at all.
No.
That was very much last minute. It was very much, maybe like a week out. It was like, I guess I could play journalist number 2.
That was super cute.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I hope to do that one day. We can make movies. Or
Just
something
sneak
like that.
in.
Sneak in, slide in. One more selfish question for myself.
For yourself, and I'm sure it's not just your question.
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
sure.
a lot of people want to know this,
Yes.
I'm sure. But I heard you guys do an interview, you and your husband, and you talked about, it's funny, you both said that individual therapy for each other was the best thing, one of the best things to happen for your relationship. And recently I was talking to one of my boys, and he was talking about some struggles that he was going through with his fiance. And I was like, man, when Bree did individual therapy, that's when I saw the biggest change in our relationship. And I just wanted to talk to you about, like, first, the mindset that you feel like people have to approach with therapy, because I've seen some people, they go to therapy, it doesn't work because they're looking maybe to get validated versus to gain the tools to learn how to work through their situation. But also the difference between individual therapy and couple therapy, and when each one makes the most sense to like go into.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of therapy.
Okay.
You're totally right about like how you go into it matters. If you're going into it because somebody told you to, or your person was like, you have to do this, like you're unlikely to get much out of it. You have to go like wanting to get something, wanting to learn or understand something. And I think personally that the biggest goal or benefit is understanding yourself better. Hopefully you can understand your partner better as well, but understanding yourself better. Why do you like this and not that? Why do you approach your relationship a certain way, and then realizing, oh, because I saw my parents do that. And I liked it, or I didn't like seeing them do that. So, I mean, I think that individual therapy allows you to explore all of that, but you have to go into it curious. You have to go into it with questions, or even go into it with like, this is the problem that I'm having in my relationship, and I don't know why.
Yes.
I don't know how I'm contributing to it. And also in life and in therapy, trying to identify how you can do better at anything,
it.
Yeah.
right? If you're having an argument or a problem in your relationship and you believe without a shadow of a doubt it's the other person, still say, but how can I make this better?
Exactly.
Or what am I doing to contribute?
Yeah.
And as long as you're looking at life and therapy in particular, like with that lens, is there anything else I can do? Then you're serving yourself and your relationship. And you may learn, like, it sounds like the therapist may say, it sounds like you are actually working very hard to give X, Y, and Z. And maybe you should articulate to your partner X, Y, ABC.
Yeah.
But you have to go into it with like a learning mind. As I mentioned, I think that work in relationships is the work you're willing to do on yourself.
Yeah.
And therapy is a part of that.
One of the
I think
biggest.
that was.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying. I think that's what my wife's mindset was, and why it worked so much is she would be like, "I'm getting angry, but I don't want to be angry at you. So I'm trying to figure out where this comes from. And also, one thing I told her, I was like, I can't handle all your raw thoughts and emotions. Like, I'm here for you to support you, but sometimes you have so many raw thoughts, and because I'm your husband, if you say something to me, I take that personally, and I keep that with me. But you may come back a week later and be like, that thing I said, that's not really how I feel anymore. Now that I thought about it, it's this, but you already said the other thing. So I was like, it's stuck in there. So I was like, I can't handle all your raw thoughts and emotions. You may need some help processing these things. And then when you come to me about something or come to me with something, then it's more complete thought. You thought it out. Now you understand more how to communicate it in a way that I can receive it. And I owe that. I feel like all that for individual therapy. Her therapist, Lisa, she has done a great job. And it's really helped us. And that's been different from like couples therapy.
Yeah.
We went to couples therapy, and 2 sessions in, he was like, I don't know why y'all here. Like, we figured out how to maneuver certain situations and certain conversations as a couple, but there was just things individually that we had to work on to help each other and help the relationship.
For me, couples therapy it was super helpful because there would be, even taking the raw thoughts and emotions thing, like there would be times where I'm like, I'm saying something and I feel like he's not hearing what I want him to, he's not taking from it what I want him to take from it. Is there a better way for me to say it? Is there a way that somebody else can like help him see? Because so the couples therapy helped because we were both able to say, like, this is the problem that we had. This is the conversation that we had yesterday that went badly. And I don't understand what I'm saying wrong or why he doesn't see what I see.
Where's the disconnect?
And so they were able to rephrase stuff, or able to say, well, if, Tommy, if you experienced her doing X, Y, Z, how would, they were able to like get into both of our minds and help us translate. And so I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I got from therapy is accountability. That exact thing you're talking about, where it's like, I'm sure of certain things when I went in, I'm like, I just know that this is this. But the therapist essentially gives you new perspective, and a lot of that perspective works its way back around to what role did you play, if any, but it puts the mirror up. It's not excusing the behaviors of someone else necessarily. Like what pushed me to therapy initially was my relationship with my father, and how, I thought that I was okay with it. He had passed away by the time I went to therapy, but I was like, I need to go. And I know that it's having an impact on my love life and all these things, but I was super clear about so many things. And then I sat in therapy and I was like, oh, wow, like some of this is like me. While it felt so easy to just be like, my dad this, my dad that, the therapist was able to be like, yes, some of that is this, but now you're grown, you're an adult. And so here's how you are playing a part. So that accountability for self was huge for me, but also taking a beat, right? That's something else that I really learned in therapy. Like sometimes you really just have to take a beat, no matter who you're having the conversation with. This could be a colleague, this could be your friends. Like sometimes you clash or you run into a rough spot and you just get so defensive that you're just ready to respond. But sometimes you need to take a beat. The beat could be 5 minutes. The beat could be 2 days. You need to figure that out, because that helps you develop effective communication for sure. When you're like, I need to communicate it in a way that they can understand. That also gets me where I need to be.
And communication is an interesting thing, because the other, advice people give about marriage and partnership is like, always communicate, or communication is key. And nobody really, not nobody, but people, it takes a while to learn what communication means.
For sure.
That's a very big word. And it isn't just talking. Most people think when they say communication is key, it means we have to always talk. We have to talk through things. It's how you're talking. It's when you're talking.
yes.
Did you take a beat before you said that?
Exactly.
It is, what did your face say?
It's
Because your
it's
mouth
the
said something
unspoken
else.
communication.
It is the
Yes.
tone of voice.
That's all
You
that.
know, all of that is communication. And so I don't even say we forget that. Like, we grow up not knowing that. We always hear communication is key. Communication is key.
Yes.
No, it's not that simple.
We need to break that down.
Yeah.
We need to break
I
that.
learned that being right has little to do with a lot of things.
True that.
Like, I'm right. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't matter. And it can blow up the whole relationship. You can still be right, but how you approached it, your tone, your manner, how hot you're coming into that, like, it can change the whole dynamic. But I love, like, your emphasis, and I'm going to take that away. Like, just the focus is healthy relationships, because healthy relationships take work.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand that, because I feel like therapy has a stigma that if you're in therapy, your relationship is bad or something's going wrong. And it's like, no, when you're in a healthy relationship, you do what it takes and put in the work to make your relationship succeed.
Yep.
And therapy may need to be done in order to do that. There could be two couples that have the same exact problem, but one could work through it on their own, to where some people need some help working through it. And there's nothing wrong with saying, like, I need some help working through this. But I feel like especially when it comes to couples and relationship therapy, I feel like growing up, it was always just stigma. Like, if you're in that, then something is wrong and your relationship is failing, and you guys on the brink of, like, about to be over.
It's funny you asked about, like, is there one couple that's, like, had an impact on me? And absolutely not. But there are like 100.
Yeah,
and so it's funny.
so many.
Everything that I know I can point to an example that someone said, like, it was Tabitha and Chance who were talking about, like, communication and sometimes knowing when to communicate, because she would want to talk right away and he would be like, nah, I need a minute, and that would cause a problem for them. And then even what you were saying about being right, we have a couple out of DC that named Melissa and Alessandra that didn't end up in the show, but we interviewed them really early on, and one of the things that they said was it doesn't have to be right. It just has to hold on. I'm about to mess it up. I think it was specifically to Tommy at this time, but she was like, you don't have to be right. Lord. It was right and sense. And I think it doesn't always, you don't always have to be right. It just has to make sense for the relationship.
That
Dang, y'all
that
know
makes sense.
Y'all know what? I'm gonna have to go
That
look it
tracks.
up.
That's okay.
Because I used to say it all the time. Anyway, I'll find it.
I still feel like if that is it,
Yeah.
that makes
does make sense.
total
Yeah.
sense. Because it may not be right technically,
Yeah.
but doesn't make sense for what we need to do. That's very possible.
It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to make peace.
Ooh,
That's what it was.
that's
What it was. Meaning, like, it doesn't have to make sense to you
Yeah.
or to her individually,
Yes,
but to make peace
in our
the relationship.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what
Whatever.
we talk about all the time. I always say that, like, so many things in life are like, I always say to be successful in life, you have to learn how to operate in the gray.
Yeah.
Black and white is easy because it's clearly this or clearly that. And in your relationships, you'll figure out, like, there are black and white things that people universally will say is wrong is right and right. But when you get in a relationship, there's so much nuances that's
So much.
particular to your person that you have to adjust and learn.
100%.
And it's not about being right about something. It's like my wife, when we're in the kitchen, she's like, I don't like the outlets being shown. Cover it with a toaster or something like that. I have to learn that. And we may get in an argument, and to somebody else that's dumb and that's stupid, but this is my person and it means a lot to her, and she doesn't like to see it. So either I can argue with her about what's right, what's wrong, or I can just adjust because
100%.
I'm adjusting what's particular to you. Because guess what? You're going to have to do the same thing for me with my little nuances and things that I like. And that's what I had to learn. Like, all right, how do I adjust to my wife's particulars? And that will make relationships so much easier if I'm okay with that.
And there will be people that hear that and be like, that is crazy.
controlling. Or
Yes, and that's why like I have a practice of like not being judgmental about relationships because you just don't know like what's underneath it. And obviously
Yes.
that's a lighthearted example, but
Yeah.
like there could be, you know, my dad passed away as well. There could be certain triggers for me that like I don't want to hear, see, da 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 da.
Yes.
And it's like that might sound crazy to somebody,
someone else.
but it's like no, my person knows like what impacts me, how and why. Even with the photos on Instagram, right? The question that y'all asked from the beginning, you never know why somebody's bothered by something. You on the outside, obviously,
Yes.
the people in the relationship need to know. And so another reason why I wanted to create the docu-series was because I wanted to be able to show the breadth of relationships and what can happen and what conversations
Yes.
need to occur and the why, right? To see like, oh, this trauma when I was 8 led to me being
This way,
very
40 years
sensitive
later.
about how we do X, Y, and Z when I'm 48.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time judging people about their relationships when we need to just like chill, first of all,
Yeah.
but also to find your person, give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Maybe give somebody a 5-second stare.
Yeah.
Maybe do things that are outside of your comfort zone.
Yes.
We just put all of this judgment and all of these boundaries up, but for what?
Yeah. Why? Well, speaking of judgment, I was very put off recently by Black love kind of bubbling up in a trend that was negative, specifically because this show is so incredibly positive. And this came on the tail end of the announcement that Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson are getting divorced, and they were featured on the show amongst other couples who are now no longer married. And for some reason, it's like Black love is a curse. Like they go on this show and their relationship falls apart, and I'm like, there have been so many people on Black love who are still together, still happily, or healthily married today. And so I'm sure that when you see that, or when you saw that, it is hurtful. And we wanted to give you this opportunity to just kind of talk to that and how that makes you feel that your show would ever be seen in a negative light because of what happened in someone's relationship.
Yeah. It's definitely hurtful and frustrating. I also have to remember, that the folks writing things like that, they're writing what they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's so much to it. At the end of the day, we interviewed 250 plus couples.
Yeah.
And there have been less than 10 divorces.
Yes.
And like 5 of those were in the last 2 years.
Right.
So
the numbers are
the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah.
And so period, what that narrative is just incorrect.
Yeah.
When I get frustrated is like, why do you even want to make a negative thing out of this?
Yeah.
Why? First of all, people get divorced all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
But the people who do these tweets and the outlets who re-share that information, I do find it frustrating because I'm like, why would you want to tear down something that was intended to be positive and is positive? I mean, I might be biased,
Me too.
but it's positive. And that's part of the challenge that I had with the show in general was like from the very beginning, I'm very protective of all of the couples, even the ones that have gotten divorced.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
They got divorced for the reasons they got divorced.
That's
they
right.
tried, they worked hard, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But when people would leave a little comment on, well, I didn't like the way he said, on these happily married couples and some that have gotten divorced, trying to nitpick what you saw in a soundbite or a snippet, that would just eat me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you're not supposed to read the comments. They say don't read the comments.
Yeah.
And there's obviously tons of beautiful ones.
Yeah.
But it would bother me a lot because these are real people who have shared their vulnerability truly for the purpose of positively impacting our community.
Yes.
Like every single one of these couples sat down with us and they were like, I would love to share my story. I would love to share what I learned for our community to learn from me.
Yeah.
And so for people to nitpick that would really just upset me.
Yeah.
And again, so many of them are still happily married, but then there's folks on Instagram talking about, well, he looked at her like this. Stop.
You're reaching.
And it made it hard for me for sure.
Yeah.
That's that's unfortunate.
It's so frustrating. I was like, what? Like, how does this even make any sense. Well, one of our favorite ways of communication as we get ready to close is music. Dre and I love music. We find a music moment in practically every episode. Even in conversation, we're just talking about something. And if there's a word that's a lyric, we're just like,
There's a song for everything.
it's a song for everything.
Yeah.
So what song best describes your real love scenario? What would you say is it's kind of a song that describes your relationship?
I'm gonna go with the Toby Newingway song "Joy" right now, because it's everywhere and I love it. And for me, like having joy in my life is greatly due to my husband and my children. And so whenever I hear that, like I think of them.
That's a great one. That's a really great one. It has a spiritual vibe, but it's also really good energy. I listened to it on my way here today.
Yeah.
I love that song for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by. I'm happy because I had, like I said, some selfish questions that I got answered.
Good.
But no, like I said, it was so many similarities, and I'm just always interested. I wish we had a couple when we were like going through our situation that kind of knew the space that we were in and the different things that we were going through to help us navigate that space.
Yeah.
But even talking to you now and just getting insight, it was just very helpful, eye-opening. Just a conversation about relationships, but also what you've done with Black Love too. So I appreciate you, coming on and sharing with us.
So very much. And then your favorite question about who do you want to see?
That's the thing. I was going to ask that, but they've interviewed so many people. Normally we ask people whose real life love scenario would you want to hear, but you guys have interviewed so many people. I guess it's a good question. Is there someone
There's so many people we didn't interview.
Is there someone that you like, what's your dream list or the dream person that you still haven't done yet?
I'll give you, let me see, maybe a little bit of a list.
Okay.
So Russell Wilson and Sierra.
Yes.
They got a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I kind of broke their relationship. People don't know that.
Oh, really?
It was so funny. Quick story.
Yeah.
I was graduating from college in 2015. It was a club, Josephine's in DC. They was like, Sierra's hosting, and my cousin, I'm drinking, I'm a little lit. And they're like, Sierra's in the building. And my cousin's like, you want to go over there? And I'm like, yeah. So we go over there and we see Sierra, but then she's like rubbing a man's back. And we're like, who's that? And then we look and we like, that's Russell Wilson. We didn't know they was together now.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. So I'm like, listen, I'm lit. Like, I'm about to go ask for a picture. So I walk through security, go in there, and I'm like, hey, I just graduated from college. I play football too. Like, I want to get a picture. And then Russ was like, oh, okay, cool. And he tried to take one of me and Sierra. And I was like, nah, all of us. So then we took a picture.
The fact that they listened to you, they were like, okay.
Right? And then that made my night. And it was funny because like once I did it, everybody else tried to start coming up, and security was like, nah. And then the next day it's on like Hot 97,
Hilarious.
like Baller Alert. It's on like Wendy Williams. It's like all these things talking about their relationship. So I always feel like I had a hand in
outing it.
In outing it.
Well, if they were at the party, they might have been ready.
They might have been ready.
They were ready, but you got the first photo.
I got the first photo. So Russ and Sierra, I would love to have them too, but who else?
For sure. And Lord, okay, so why am I blanking on who I'm thinking of right now? Okay, so Russell and Sierra, Kelly Rowland and Tim Witherspoon.
Yes.
And I would say those two for sure. LL and Simone.
That would be a great one. I could see that.
Jada and Will.
Controversial to some.
Controversial to all, frankly. I mean that again in a non-judgmental way because what we've seen runs the gamut.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that don't mean it's wrong.
That's
you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I always tell our couples, like, I want to know like the worst things that have ever happened in your relationship and how you got through it.
Yeah.
Because reality TV wants you to see the worst.
The worst. Yeah.
We're here to go, how do we get from there to where you are right now?
Yeah.
Because any one of us could find ourselves in a scenario that just is challenging. I'm not saying any one of us could find ourselves cheating or entanglement, whatever. I just mean that like you just don't know what life is going to bring you.
Yeah.
And the real question is like, how do you get through it?
Yeah.
I always feel like with them, if you've been married for that long, if you ask any couple that's been married for that long, they done been through some things.
Yeah.
Like if you ask them to expose all the parts of their relationship, they done been through some things. So.
Especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like 30 years in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm sure of
Yeah.
it. I'm sure of it.
And then, of course, the Obamas.
Of course.
I would
Always.
love to.
Any day of the week.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if you get them first, send them our way. Send them one over here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
you
for
so
joining
much.
us. We so appreciate you. Anything that you want to share with us about maybe Black love, possibly maybe coming back? My selfish question.
I would love to come back in a limited way.
Okay.
Tommy needs some convincing.
Okay. All right, Tommy. Hey, we're fans.
You start a petition?
Let's bring it on back. We're ready.
Yes,
Me, him,
petition.
all of us. We're all ready.
Yeah.
But thank you again for joining us. We so
Thank you so
appreciate you.